Hello YouTube. We're starting this episode of the Macadamia Show a long way from the coastal flats and a long way even from the mountainous and volcanic regions where macadamias are grown in the northern rivers. In fact, we're out closer to Casino here, and while there are lovely cattle farms and rolling hills and absolutely gorgeous scenery in terms of open countryside, there are actually macadamia farms here. And in fact, it was near Casino here that the variety Beaumont, which is used so often in South Africa, was actually bred or discovered and passed on to the rest of the world. So historically, it's actually quite a significant area for macadamias. But we're here today to talk with someone who's been on the Macadamia Show before, and he has an involvement in managing this farm under fairly difficult conditions in dry years, but otherwise he does get involved in managing it. He's also a very big fan of integrated pest management and is going to be talking about one of the macadamia's worst pests, the nutborer, which has become a more prevalent pest in both the Northern Rivers and Queensland in recent years. So we're going to learn more about the nutborer and what can be done to stop it before it starts in the orchards. So, without further ado, let's go see who I'm talking about. I'm here with Mark Duncan from BioResources, and he's kindly invited me along to York-Lee, a place that doesn't grow very many macadamias, but it's a York-Lee farm that Mark has some involvement in running, and just panning down the rows there, long big rows, fairway west of Lismore, not quite all the way to Casino. Mark's at a good farm?
Yeah, it's thanks for having us on, Daniel. Yeah, it is a good farm. Look, I mean, in the dry years, it struggles to get the yields that you would want and expect for a farm this old, this age. But certainly when you've got that rainfall around flowering, and not too much of it at flowering, but then the follow up,
you get yourself
November,
a crop. Yeah,
you definitely get the crop. But I mean, yeah, if you go into the season with a good bit of moisture, and this year's been a really good year. Yeah. The trees were still coming back from getting a setback last year around that September, October. They really did struggle, and to get a crop. So this year the crop's looking pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm surprised to learn that, even though this is the only macadamia farm for miles, the pests still visit.
They do.
They find their way to nearly any macadamia farm, and the one we're here to talk about most today is Macadamia nutborer. And I read from the benchmarking, actually, from the Australian Macadamia Society, that behind fruit spotting bug, it's the major insect pest now. That's changed from a while ago. It's become a major pest, and with your BioResources hat on, you've got a solution that's been used now in most farms, or at least a lot of them are using this parasitic wasp to kill the pest. So I thought I'd ask, what's the pest we're dealing with? What's its life cycle? What can it do to a nut? And then what do you do to help fix it, or at least prevent it from happening? So does it start as a moth or a bug?
That's right. Yeah, it is. It's a moth, and we've got a trap over there. We'll go and have a look at that trap in a minute. But the moth flies in, it'll mate. They'll lay their eggs on the surface of the husk or up near the stem of the nut.
Okay.
And within 2 or 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, that they'll hatch as a
grub,
as a tiny little larva.
Right.
So I guess with the matrix, what we're trying to do is we do a mass release program around that time, preemptive usually, before we expect the moths.
Right.
There'll always be a few little flights in.
Yeah.
So getting
And that's how they get from farm to farm, obviously.
That's exactly right. And then once they get into the farm, they'll go through their second generation, which is, it might take them 6 to 7 weeks to get from moth to their next generation.
Moth. Right. So it's a 7-week life cycle.
That's right.
And mostly this life cycle we're talking around is about Christmas, January,
the
hottest part of the year.
That's right. Probably, just, you know, that you might start getting damage even as early as late October, November, but that's probably only on the early setting stuff. But certainly once sort of late December, January comes around, that's when you really need to
be on guard.
And getting your releases in check.
Well, I'm excited to see how this life cycle starts, because I've seen evidence of nutborer and I've seen damage by nutborer, but I've never really seen the culprit in adult form. So this is a pheromone trap you're hanging in a tree.
Yep.
You don't do this on all the farms you've managed?
We got a few around this year, but yeah, these have been used previously for many years. We've only just started to get back into them, just because
it's made of core fluid or something.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
right. It just comes in a flat pack and you can put it together.
Now inside I can just see some very nondescript looking moths.
Yeah, it's the bigger, larger moth.
Right.
These ones through here.
Okay.
So
and it's a sticky trap, is it?
It is a sticky trap, and what you can see there.
I use these for pantry moths, you know.
Oh, yeah. Well,
they sell them in Woolies,
exactly.
But it's a different pheromone, obviously.
Yeah. So we can. This is well and truly overdue to be taken out. Next year, we're hoping to get a lot of the consultants in the area will hopefully share their info.
So the purpose is you prove that the pest is present in an orchard, and does it help tell you how prevalent it is?
Look, exactly. It's more the onset of the pest flying in,
right,
and comparing it to other sites, and you can sort of start maybe towards the coast and the mangroves. You would expect to see them a bit earlier.
Okay.
And out here maybe a little bit later, but we were catching them, in December out here, that's for sure.
And this particular result tells you what? Lots of them around?
Oh, look, this isn't usually a high pressure farm.
Right.
It just tells you that they're flying in. It doesn't even tell you that they're laying eggs. So obviously they'll need the female to be mating with, and then you can expect after the main flight comes in, maybe it might even be a couple of weeks after that you start noticing the eggs.
Okay.
But it gives you an idea.
Yeah.
And then
it's just an idea, isn't it? There's no way to control the pest by trapping them.
No, that's right. It's not practical to be doing that.
Yeah.
So that pheromone trap, actually we'll just stick all that back down there.
Yeah.
And because that pheromone will probably only last a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And
then it stops attracting new
that's right.
New pests.
So what we'll do is we'll just this nice new sticky
trap.
Yep. And this is late in the season, but obviously nutborer will has the potential to, even though it's as we'll see a bit later, the nuts are mature. The nuts are hard.
Yep.
They can still drop the nuts immature. So it is.
So it's still a danger even after the shell's hardened.
Yeah, exactly.
And the shells generally harden around Christmas time?
Yeah.
Rule of thumb?
Generally. Obviously, you'll have some differences with A16s and A4s and 849, some of the other varieties.
Are you saying the shells of them harden at different times?
A little bit later.
Right, for the later dropping varieties.
Yeah, and I suppose every variety can depending on the season, can be a bit different and have a second set that is a little bit later. So just be good to monitor and be vigilant. That
right.
Yeah. Anyway, we've just stuck that new pheromone trap on there.
Ready to trap some new moths, but I think we should now go and have a look at the next stage of the life cycle if we can, and see what it's actually doing to the macadamia nuts. All right, so out in the orchard we're coming across a 344 tree here, Mark, and I'm glad you've been a pest scout for many years because your eye's sharper than mine. Apparently on these nuts, which look great to me, there's actually nut borer. So
there is
let's get in close and you can show us why there is nut borer there.
There we go.
Okay,
so there is a...
Right in close to the nut, there's a dot I can see, just a bare dot.
Yeah, so that frass there, the caterpillar poo.
Yep.
It's just coming out there, and then just over there, if you can see, that's the old. I think it is hatched.
An old hatched egg.
So we can.
It's very small. May not come out very well for the viewers, but right there. Okay, so it's a tiny egg, and I guess when you're scouting for these pests, you've got to use a magnifying glass sometimes.
Well, you do. I mean, what you want to be trying to do is you want to be taking 5 or 10 nuts per tree.
Yep.
You might stop every 4th or 5th row, and you really have to take the nuts off and spin them around a little bit. Often the nut borer lay up the top.
Right, the top third of the nut.
Yeah, but they can be anywhere, and also sometimes in the little sort of seams.
Right.
They like to get in there, but yeah, on this occasion, that's where it's laid, and
Because it's an insect looking for the easiest feed.
yep, and it's gone in there. So what we do is we just nice sharp knife and just try and take that husk off carefully.
To see how far it got in.
Yeah, and then
Okay,
So
so
it's-
we're seeing already the dark brown there.
in through there, or the
Yeah, is that where it came in?
yep, that's right. Now there's the frass there. We might have accidentally just
Caught him
chopped
in the
him
act.
in half, so
Oh.
his head is there.
Okay, so you've killed it.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
and
so-
there's the rest of it there. So
Okay. The little grub.
yep.
Did it make it into the nut? in
No,
this
it
particular
doesn't.
case?
So I mean, I guess that's what we were saying before. I mean,
So where the shell hardens, will that nut, if it went through to harvest, would it be a viable nut?
probably not. I mean, it could be semi-mature. It could go commercial grade, but it's probably without that darkened browning in the husk, I would say that will be immature.
Right. And we now know, particularly in the northern rivers, a lot of the rejects have been rejected for immaturity.
That's
as
right.
in not proper oil content in the nut. It dropped too soon.
Yeah, that's right. And it could have been. It could be for a whole lot of factors. It could be heat stress,
Right.
anthracnose, husk spot, all that. But
But the tree's instinct is to drop the nut because it feels something's not right.
that's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the damage. That's one level of damage. But of course, the big level of damage is where a nut borer gets right into a nut and then starts feeding on the kernel as a food source.
Yeah, it can. I mean, they can go through like an open micropile as well.
Yep.
So even though your crop's mature, you don't want to leave a lot of excess, nut borer larvae to get in, because and then the longer you leave your harvest, the more likely it is that they're going to find particularly thinner shell varieties. I would say more like 16s, A16s, or
Right.
A4s or MCT1s. That they're all going to be vulnerable for much longer.
Right, I see. But then at some point the shell hardens, but thinner shell means a longer period of susceptibility.
Exactly. And look, I mean, if you've been releasing matrix and you're not spraying anymore and you're not killing them off, well, they are going to continue through much longer than your releases. So,
Okay.
that's another benefit, and hopefully cut down on the overwintering for the following season.
As well. Well, look, we haven't yet seen a nut where nut borer's taken its toll, and I hope we don't find one, but let's have a look and see if we can.
Righto.
Now, on the way to go look for nut borer, we found another little critter that Mark is very gently getting out of this bag, and we wanted to show him to you.
I'll put him on there just in case he bites me.
Think on your sleeve, because they are nasty little creatures, but they're nasty to pests. Let's get him in the sun. That is an assassin bug. Right on your fingertips. Mark's putting his life in danger. Apparently they have a very painful sting, and they're not scared to sting humans. However, these are the gold standard of bugs for bugs, aren't they?
Oh, they're
Mark?
generalist predators, yeah. So they'll have a go at everything, and they
Lace bug.
Yeah, probably more the bigger, possibly lace bug, but
They go after stuff bigger than them.
even
don't
the macadamia weevil. So,
Really?
Yeah, absolutely, and highly likely, just fruit spotting bug as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do, especially the nymphs. Very easy. Yeah.
And has BioResources ever looked at bringing these out, or is it a little bit too dangerous?
It's been talked about. I mean, I'd love to see something like this happen, but there has been other insectaries around the world try and breed these up.
Yeah.
It would be really good, and having a food source for them is probably the first step. But yeah. But I mean, that's the sort of thing you'll find in your orchard if you're not using the broad spectrum chemicals and
Yep.
paying a bit of attention to what's in the orchard. So
Perhaps we better let him go because I think he wants to go at you or me.
We'll give him.
But yeah, where you see one in an orchard, the answer is don't spray it if you can avoid it.
Yeah, they can look a little bit similar to fruit spotting bugs. So.
But well, hopefully not too many killed by accident because they're a very valuable little contributor.
Yeah, that's right.
Great. Right, so we've just found a couple of nuts which Mark wants to show us. One's been very damaged.
Yeah, this one not so much.
Yeah, you can see a hole where the nut borer's gone in.
Yeah, you get a good look at the nut borer there.
It's alive.
Yep.
It's crawling around.
So that would be around three weeks old, possibly 4.
Yeah.
And in another couple of weeks, you could expect, depending on how hot it is, you could expect the larva to start pupating. So to start forming its cocoon and pupa and
comes out a moth.
Yeah.
Has it got into the nut in this particular case?
No.
Right, so in that case, that's shell had hardened enough, and it's.
That's right. It can get into that end bit there.
Possibly,
if it's left there for long enough.
Right.
But I mean, it really can go through its life cycle within the husk and between the husk and the shell.
Yeah.
So
All right.
Anyway, you won't survive down there. And then
there's one you found where you think that the trichogramma wasp, or the Mactrix you call them, it's trichogramma, right?
Yeah, it is.
It is. Mactrix is easier to say.
Yep. So there was one there. This one's turning pink. I'll get my knife out there again.
Keep it in the sun for me.
Yep. Just to point that there's an egg right there, and it's pink. So and it's evenly pink. It's not like black with it's not red with a black head, which might indicate a caterpillar, like a larva. Right. It's all pink.
So does that mean that the wasp has gone in and parasitised the egg?
Yep, highly likely. I mean, we can expect that over maybe tomorrow or the next day to turn black.
So these wasps are obviously tiny, but they lay their egg in the other egg.
Yep.
That's what the parasitised means.
Yep.
Sort of like alien or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bug-eat-bug world, isn't it?
Yeah, very much. But then there's another spot on the nut where a borer might have got in.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So there would have been another. There's obviously
a subsequent attack.
It looks like there was an old egg that's just come off there.
Yeah.
But that once that egg turns fully black and the wasp develops, you might get 1 or 2 wasps come out, and then they carry it on and start searching for nut borer in your orchard.
Right. So when you seed these wasps into the orchard, they will reproduce on their own up to a point. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, you can't expect in a monoculture that you're going to release the wasps once and
they're always there.
Yeah.
Over winter they'll starve, won't they?
That's right. And these moth flights can be significant.
Yeah.
If you've got lots of diversity in your orchard and different host trees around,
right,
maybe. But I mean, I think the crop, a good crop deserves protection. Really.
Yeah. I mean, obviously this orchard has the wasps put up, but we're still finding eggs with some nut borer. So it's not 100%.
Exactly.
Of anything sort of thing, I guess, but neither is spray, come to that. So I mean, when you spray at the wrong time and a moth flies in the next day, well, the moth gets away with it, I guess.
Yeah,
so,
we haven't done any broad spectrums here, so we've there has been a weevil treatment and one spotting bug spray. So
it's largely integrated pest management.
It is.
Right.
Yep.
All right. So so we've yet to find one with a bug all the way through it, but when they get into the nut, it's obviously ugly. It's completely useless as a nut. Wouldn't even count as commercial quality.
It is. I mean,
it drops.
Possibly,
I suppose.
if we'd been here a month ago, before the nuts were shell hardening, we would start.
You'd find those, right?
On them, and they've probably dropped off quite some time ago, and they get mulched up.
Now, we've got to find these cards. They're stapled around. I've seen them in a bunch of trees. We'll find one nearby and just see what it looks like. But you distribute these, or BioResources distributes these generally by mail, don't they?
That's right. Yep, we dispatch on a Monday.
Yep.
Generally, and it could be Australia Post or Toll, or even a lot of the your local rural stores will and other independent agronomists.
Here's one here,
Yep.
and then you've got to pick them up within a couple of days, obviously, because they're on their way to hatching.
So you might get them on a Wednesday or a Thursday and put them straight out. I mean,
Right.
sometimes you get some guys closer to the insectary at Woodford will probably get them the day after.
Okay, but yeah, for the rest, I mean,
That's a pretty old
that's
one
an
there.
old card, so I can see signs of where the eggs were along this corrugated cardboard here.
Yeah.
That's where the eggs were.
We should be able to pick. Oh, there's another one over here.
Yep.
Looks like a bit newer.
What variety of tree is this one?
That looks like a bit of root.
Looks like a bit of rootstock, but yeah.
Coming out of,
Okay, so there's a lot more black marks on this card.
another 344.
Right. So while we're talking about varieties, you've said earlier that the later dropping ones might need more regular applications of this wasp to protect them.
Yeah.
Because their shell hardens a bit later, or sometimes it's a thinner shell.
That's right. Like a lot of the earlier ones, like that 344, yeah, it is starting to get that maturity markings on the inside, and But look, I mean, some of the other varieties, I think this is a 842 over here.
Yep.
I mean, this will have a vast array of different stages on the 842s generally, and some of these could be quite mature.
Nice big nut for an
It
842.
I can hear that's almost,
Almost ready.
It's almost getting ready, but
it's a late dropper though, the 842.
it'll hang on. They can hang on for a while,
Yep.
like a 246.
So really the idea of the Matrix is get it on before the shell hardens, because that's when the worst damage can occur.
Yeah. Look,
And then as the shell's hardening, you keep it up because it can get through the hardening shell and make the nut either second grade or reject.
Yeah, that's
right.
right.
Which is no good to the farmer.
Yeah, and look, I mean, sometimes you might have to go and do a crop protection spray, and you might knock some of the numbers back. They will still be protected inside the egg.
Right.
If some of the chemistries are better than others.
Yeah.
But the main thing is getting that early parasitism.
Yeah.
So if you can release early,
and they can breed.
And they can naturally breed up in the orchard, and then just keep your releases going up until the point where you're actively monitoring good parasitism levels, or you're happy with the maturity of the crop.
So do we time the release after you've sprayed indoxacarb and that sort of thing for Macadamia seed weevil?
Yeah, it's probably.
Is that a best idea?
You might be spraying for that in October.
Yeah, the Halloween spray.
Yeah. And look, it really depends on your fruit spotting bug sprays as well. Some people would rather get that out of the way and get the parasites out there
afterwards.
Now,
BioResources does do a parasite that it's still an experimental stage, the anastatus wasps for fruit spotting. Yeah. Now, can that coexist with Matrix?
Oh, definitely.
They don't fight each other or anything?
No, they don't.
They go after different prey, obviously, so I don't imagine they'd fight each other. But they're both killable by normal pesticides, aren't they?
They are.
Right.
Pesticides will impact them, that's for sure.
And this time of year, when fruit spotting bug is a major enemy, I mean, by this time of year I mean January, are there pesticides that are less harmful to things like these wasps?
Oh, look, I would say some of the OPs are probably more harmful.
OPs meaning?
The organophosphates.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So sort of, they're best to stay away from them anyway. But I know bulldog's a broad spectrum, but I mean,
so bulldog will kill them?
It will kill them on contact. Probably protected fairly well in the egg, but all the sprays.
Any adult, yeah.
Prodigy is probably if you have to target nutborer, if your levels are the wasp hasn't been able to control.
To do it.
You do have the option of prodigy,
Right.
which is
Is it broad spectrum or is
it's
it
only going to target the Lepidoptera,
like
the
nutborer?
caterpillars, exactly.
And okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But in general, I mean, obviously there's two ways of handling nutborer. The old way used to be spraying pretty poisonous stuff, endosulfan and those sorts of things that are now gone. You still can spray for nutborer, but it will only, obviously, it won't get into a nut.
Yep.
It has to get the moth or the bug on the surface of the moth.
That's right. And I guess that's where a lot of even with the chemistries that we had in the past, before the finding of this parasitic wasp and the mass rearing of it, we were finding significant numbers of nutborer. That was pretty well. If you get a week of rain, you miss the timing. If that larva gets into the husk where the spray can't penetrate it, it's too late.
Well, the last few wet years, good luck on timing. I mean, you would have missed the timing for all of them pretty much, unless you had a farm that magically dried out very quickly. But and then the rain can wash the spray off anyway. So
it's a double whammy.
So as a rain-resistant thing, the wasps are okay.
Yeah, look, I mean, you have the option there if you have a rain event where it might last for a day or two.
Yep.
Once you get the delivery, you might just say, oh well, let's delay it until after the rain.
Yep.
So you can put them in a esky, or if you've got a wine fridge or just a little fridge that you can set to 5 to 15 degrees.
It's a bit warmer than your standard domestic fridge.
You don't want to be putting them in the fridge because you will impact their emergence rate.
Okay.
So ideally, probably around that 10 to 12 degrees is enough to sort of stop them from emerging for a day or two.
Sure. And then when they post them, you don't necessarily want them left in a hot post box.
No.
In your property.
No,
I know some farmers have PO boxes and go get them from there. That sort of stuff. Or they get their mail pretty regularly.
Yeah, if you can track it, if you can check the tracking and which is pretty handy.
Right, so they do track the post. Yeah.
And if if by some means that you don't happen to deliver, we can sort of correct it. By sending more the following week, or just get in contact with myself, and we might be able to sort of distribute some last minute.
Right. And so you're a distributor locally in the Northern Rivers area.
Yeah, that's right. And
there are others in other growing areas as well?
No, I'm the grow liaison for BioResources on the East Coast.
On the East Coast, okay. So you'll cover all of Queensland as well if need be?
That's right. Up to Bundaberg and into Rocky. But
right.
We've also, in partnerships with another larger firm, which supplies a lot of the parasitic wasps and more of the mites and into the greenhouse crops.
Right.
And vegetables there.
So, that's great.
So that we sort of got a bit more of a broader arching sort of supply of predators.
When you've got neighbouring farms that use this wasp together, is that a benefit? Can these little wasps travel a little bit?
Oh, they
or is
can.
it just providing broader coverage if you've got farms on boundaries? Not this farm, obviously.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, they're not going to stay within these boundaries. They will, depending on the wind directions and migration, they will move over to the neighbours. That's for sure. There's no doubt. So, I mean, if you can get in with your neighbour, same old thing. Area-wide management is ideal, really.
And if a neighbour puts them on a certain day of the week and you put them on a different day of the week, you might even get better coverage that way.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's
marginally.
It really is going to depend on what the weather conditions are at the time. So, ideally you're probably picking the best conditions to put them out as well. Like when you get them on a Tuesday, you might or a Wednesday, and they're going to emerge Friday. Probably the ideal would be to put them out into the orchard Thursday, if that's practical.
Yeah. Just
so they're not hanging out into the orchard, susceptible to predators and all that. So
now I've used your cards for my farm, and I found it cost effective compared to spraying, but that's mainly because I contract people in, and obviously the spray's expensive, the contractor's expensive, everything else, whereas going around with a stapler and stapling cards to your trees is actually quite a nice thing to do. My farm of 2,500 odd trees used to cost me roughly $250-300 a pop for these cards.
Yep.
And they haven't gone up much since then, have they?
No,
I mean,
I'm sure there'll be increases over time, but they
haven't jumped up like pesticide prices and everything.
No,
so
that's right.
Yeah, so that at least we have that to hopefully bank on in future. In terms of delivery and that sort of stuff, is there any proposed change in terms of how you get these wasps into trees, or have you really think we found the best way that we have?
Oh, look, we are working on other options other than just stapling them into the trees.
Right.
There's talk of drones. There's talk of pumping them into the trees as like confetti. But look, we're working on it.
Okay, that's great. Mark, that's a really great introduction to this pest and what to do with it, and a great setting to do the film in as well. So appreciate your time.
No, good, Daniel. Cheers.
Thanks very much. Bye.